Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between, and at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week, so in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured on the episode. Now let's get started. I had 13 books, a pretty hefty haul for me. Number 13 was Spider-Man The Lost Hunt, issue 5. This is the last issue of this miniseries. A miniseries, honestly, I enjoyed overall. I like seeing Mary Jane and Peter together. I enjoy the angst, but I didn't love the villain. And obviously as you get towards the end of a miniseries, it's gonna have to do with the villainous plot, and we got a lot of that in this issue. We got some action. We got to see Spider-Man being Spider-Man without being Spider-Man, so he doesn't have his powers, but we get to see his armor suit, Mary Jane worrying, and then the ominous ending of, is the villain actually alive? Or I would say the mother that's related to the villain actually alive. The artwork I thought was okay. I definitely think there was better installments of this issue, but overall had a good time with this one. Again, especially if you like retro Spider-Man. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 13. All right, moving on to number 12, which is Nightwing issue 102. I don't know how to feel about this arc because I was really looking forward to this arc. I like the Titans, wanted to see what Tom Taylor's voice will be like with the Teen Titans, especially because he's writing his own series with them. And it doesn't really have to do much of them. It's a Nightwing issue where he goes up against his other self. We have a girl that's a newer character related to a villain, and we get her in kind of the middle of this all, and that's the issue. For the most part, it's very point A to point B. I feel like it relies a lot on you liking this girl as a character, and I think she's just okay. I think they used the cuteness factor more than actually giving her a plot to make us interested in the character. But the artwork's gorgeous. I love the art style for this book. It's not the normal artist, which is Bruno Rodolfo, but it is Moore, who's obviously a great artist and has a similar style to Rodolfo. So really, really wonderful art here. So overall, giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11, which is X-Treme X-Men, issue 4. This is very retro X-Men, which I love. It's Chris Claremont writing the X-Men again, writing Kitty Pryde. But this issue is mostly the X-Men grieving over Kitty and being like, woe is me. What do we do now? And then obviously Kitty comes back by the end of the issue. So it almost feels like a point A, point to point B issue, and a little bit of a filler issue for this one there. There could have maybe been a little bit more character oomph to get us along to this plot point. But I like the art, I like the style, I like the tone of this book. So overall giving that 3 stars, and obviously excited to see Kitty Pryde back and getting to see her in the story. And I love Ogun as a villain. So he's been a lot of fun to see again. Moving on to number 10, a book that's lower for my personal taste. I don't think this is a bad book. I just don't know if I love it. And that is Vanish issue 5. I've never been a 90s Image comic fan. I've never really gone too much into it. Those elements don't bring me into the character that much. This issue, we finally return to Vanish. He's in a mental hospital, but we're also flashing back to his hero-esque magic side of things. And you question, is he an unreliable narrator? Is any of this true? Is there actually a magical world? And I think that's interesting. I just don't know if that's interesting to me. So I think there is a lot of people that'll enjoy those elements of the story. I just never really felt sucked into it. I love Ryan Stegman's artwork. I really enjoy their collaboration, but I do think I'm going to drop this book just because I gave it 5 issues and I'm just not sucked into the world as much as I want to be. So overall giving that 3 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, and that is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 22. This is always such a conflicting series for me because I love Spider-Man. I very much enjoy The Amazing Spider-Man as a title. I think it's always fun as a flagship title, but I don't know how to feel about this arc. I really don't. I like the last issue because I felt like things were happening. I looked past the Romita Jr. artwork, but the story for me, there's parts and elements that I am curious about. I like the idea of this older villain being utilized. I think it's interesting that they're talking about multiverses, but this issue is an info dump for the most part. We get introduced to Paul, kind of get the secret origins of Paul in this issue. And he's just explaining about the villain. And we don't really know who Paul is, but there's just a lot of information being dumped at us. And I don't know if I'm even interested in the information that's being given. And that's kind of what was so hard about this issue. It's like, oh, I'm excited because I'm getting information. I'm excited because the moment's finally here. But I'm like, do I like the moment? And that's kind of what I'm still trying to figure out. So overall, I gave that 3 stars. I'm undecided about this arc so far. We'll see where the next issue goes. All right, moving on to number 8, which is The Neighbors, issue 1. It's a new Boom Studios book. And I felt like the world building was really interesting for this. It almost feels like it's an issue 3, but not in a bad way. We really jump into this world of this mother who gets remarried, and she has 2 kids, and one of the kids does not want to be involved here. And they move into this new house, and obviously the house is a little weird. There might be something going on in the forest, and that's the issue. We get the little weirdness throughout the issue until the little girl is taken away, it seems like, and replaced by somebody else. And I'm like, okay, I like the creepiness of this ambiance. I really love the tone of this book, but I just wasn't sure if I liked the characters yet. I definitely want to give issue 2 a shot to see where the series is going, because it brought this really interesting feeling to the book. I just don't know if I was fully sold on it all at the same time, because it just wasn't that character driven. So overall, giving that one 3 stars, and that is number 8. So moving on to number 7, which is World's Finest, Batman and Superman, issue 13. This is the start of a new arc, and I would say this would be a little higher if it wasn't for like the 5 to 6 pages of exposition about, I always forget the character's name, Mephisto. And we get to see his character explained here. And if you know anything about his character, I honestly, I know of him, but I know his origins. So I'm like, all right, cool. We got some origins there. And is it connected to this guy who died? And now the person who died is getting Batman into Bruce Wayne into jail. He gets arrested by the end of the issue. And the reason this is higher is obviously I love the ambiance of this book. I really enjoyed the Silver Age feel. I love the opening where we just get to see Superman, Supergirl, Robin, and Batgirl involved here. And then Jimmy Olsen is put into the fold and actually becomes a big part of that cliffhanger for Bruce Wayne getting arrested. So those elements I really liked. They're just a lot of the middle that I thought was a little slower for this one. Also, it was great to have Dan Mora back on artwork. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Inferno Girl Red, issue 3. So it's the last issue of this book 1. And I love the kind of more slice of life elements of this issue, where the friends find out, I would say both friends find out that she's Inferno Girl. She tries to save her mom, and it doesn't work out. And you're like, oh, now I'm interested in book 2, where this is going to go, where her hero career is going to go. But honestly, the elements of this book almost makes me want this to be a floppy. It makes me want it to be 22 pages where you could kind of play with those cliffhangers a little bit more and play with pacing a little bit more, because that's, I think, was the detriment of this book. Was not detriment, but the thing that I think, because detriment's so strong. Whatever, a word that's less strong than detriment. But I feel like it kind of had too much room to play in this. And it made the action sequences a little bit too long. Some of the even the slice of life moments a little bit too long, where I want cliffhanger to cliffhanger, and kind of what Radiant Black ends up doing, where you kind of have you have a stronger pacing because of it. So overall, I gave this 3.5 stars. I think this book has a lot of promise, and obviously I'm interested to see where book 2 goes. And I thought this issue was a start of something that has a lot of potential. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 106. There's some really good moments here, a lot of good character moments. One of my favorites being Jason's retired. Tommy says, dude, I need your help. Or, they just kind of connect for 2 pages. I like that. I love the moment where Trini and Kimberly get to connect. And really, we are kind of setting up towards a battle. We're realizing that Rita is becoming badder and badder and badder. And we get to see Lord Zedd become a Power Ranger by the end. And is he going to be a bad Power Ranger? most likely. And is it Grace's fault? There's a lot of interesting elements to that cliffhanger, and you're like, whoa, this is taking the franchise in a really interesting direction. That's a cool cliffhanger. So overall, I liked it. There's definitely some slower moments because, again, the plot is just mostly Matt's missing, Rita's doing her thing, and we have to take our time in this issue, but the elements that do pick up the pace are really well done here, with some wonderful artwork as well that really services those reveals well, especially that splash page by the end. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, and that is Superman issue 2. I like this issue. I do think issue 1 was a bit stronger. The reason I like it, the artwork is really well done. And I like that it has a bend on classic Superman. So Parasite is a classic Superman villain. We've seen, I'm sure, many introductions to a Superman series where he fights Parasite. So this time we do something a little different. There's Parasite clones. We get introduced to a new villain, which is Marilyn Moonlight, which I still don't quite understand her powers, but we get an introduction to her. And then these people, Lois, the townspeople or city people of Metropolis, are becoming zombified pretty much by Parasite because it's becoming airborne. And so is Superman. So I think those elements are really interesting. I liked his team up with Lex. I do think it slows things down a little bit. It definitely focuses on action a bit more than maybe the first issue did, but I liked it. I'm really liking this new run. I think this is a great creative team, and it already feels like a special run. It's only issue 2. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is She-Hulk, issue 11. And this is a really solid issue. We get to see the return of the artist from Runaways, Andres Genelot. And, I love his work. So it was really cool to see him team up again with Rainbow. And this is a really well-balanced issue. We get the emotions of She-Hulk dealing with not being able to touch her boyfriend, and obviously her boyfriend maybe not having the best reputation, so she has not revealed to anybody that Jack of Hearts is her boyfriend. And then, we get some fun elements, especially fighting elements, with the Fight Club return in the beginning of the issue, and then her just teaming up with the Fantastic Four. I thought was really cool. The ending, we get the introduction to this new villain. I still don't know what to feel about him, but I like the action. There are some times where I was like, oh, maybe She-Hulk went a little too easy on him, but I'm curious to see what his role is going to be, and I thought it was a pretty well balanced issue. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is The Flash, issue 795. This is one of the best events I've read in a really long time. It is so well paced. There's so many good character moments, and then there's always the wow moment. It's just honestly, one-on-one of writing a good event/story arc. So with this issue, we get to see some really good character moments with Liberty Bell. So we get to see Jesse Quick return as Liberty Bell, which I always love to see with Jesse. And I just love seeing the Flash family work together and everyone kind of have a role and everyone have a purpose. It's not just a crowd of people just to be there. Everyone feels like they should be there, and it feels bigger because of that. And that's how you do an event as well. And then by the end, we realize maybe Wally won't return even if they end up doing everything correctly. We see that Wally actually is not dead, and he's in this Flash planet, which I think is connected to some future state stuff that I did not read, because I saw that the Gold Beetle had returned, and I don't know much about her character, but I think that's probably connected to that. But I like that everything felt connected. I like that big cliffhanger, and I thought it was just a really, really solid issue. And even though there was a few different artists in this one, I think they utilized it well, with some of them being flashbacks, or again, seeing that Elseworld, and then the main story having a different artist as well. And I think it all meshed well together. So overall, giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, which is Punisher, issue 10. I love this book. I truly, really adore this book. I think there's just such wonderful emotions, some great character work. And this issue has to do with Maria, who I think is really the secret weapon of this whole entire series of why it works. So Maria, we get to see Punisher and what he's doing through her eyes from the past and the present, where she's starting to realize, okay, maybe someone's up with Frank, maybe we won't escape this life, and maybe my family will never return. And she tries to process that as someone who has returned to life and doesn't really remember her past very much. Or at least that's what she's saying. And then in the past, we get to see how, Frank and her, they were good. They were even going to have another kid. And then, the violence brings Frank back into the war. And you would think Maria would be totally scared off by it, but she's like, no, I think what scares me is that I love it. And there's just so many interesting layers to her here that just makes this book so intriguing. As we're building into this kind of bigger Marvel war, as the Avengers kind of say to Punisher, hey, you gotta stop this. There's just so many great elements that's building a cool superhero world, a cool family dynamic. It's just such a well done book with wonderful art. I love the art for the past, love it for the present. Great action. I just think it's such a, again, I could keep gushing and saying it's a well balanced book. So overall, giving that 4.5 stars, and that is my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite comic of the week was. And last week's viewer pick of the week was Superman Lost. And here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one.